Scary Reddit Stories number 1. I found a VHS tape that recorded a woman's murder. I found an old VHS tape that appeared to contain the recording of a woman's murder. I was helping my grandmother move some furniture around her house when it happened. After my mother died, my grandmother became the closest thing I had to a mom. I was still very young back then, and after I was seriously injured in an accident, I moved in with her while I recovered. She spent years taking care of me, so helping her with anything physical always felt like the least I could do. I was up in the attic when I accidentally knocked over a cardboard box. It was filled with old VHS tapes. The oldest one was labeled 1990. There were no titles, just years. Our attic wasn't really used for storage anymore. It was more like an extra living room, and there was an old TV with a VHS player sitting in the corner. Out of curiosity, I picked the oldest tape and pressed play. I expected home videos, family memories, vacation footage, anything except what I was about to see. The video opened with someone filming a woman sitting alone at a small table inside a coffee shop. She was quietly reading a book. The camera slowly zoomed in until it focused on her hair, glowing in the sunlight. Then the footage suddenly cut. Now she was walking through what looked like downtown Chicago. The camera followed several yards behind her. She had no idea anyone was watching. The sky was dark gray, and the headlights from passing cars reflected off her shiny boots. The camera shook constantly, occasionally brushing against the person's jacket as they followed her. Whoever was filming stayed just far enough away to make it obvious. They weren't with her. They were stalking her. The footage continued like that for almost 5 minutes. Then it cut again. My stomach dropped. The same woman was now tied up inside the trunk of a car. Her mouth was sealed shut with duct tape. She couldn't scream. All I could hear was heavy rain and her muffled cries. Her desperate attempts to scream through the tape were heartbreaking. A chill ran down my spine. I could barely keep my eyes on the screen. Every second, I expected the video to cut to something even worse. A gloved hand reached into frame and slammed the trunk shut. Everything went dark. The next scene took place at night. The woman was sitting in a chair, tied down, covered in blood. It looked like an abandoned warehouse. The only light came from a single fluorescent bulb hanging above her. Pools of dark red blood surrounded her feet. The camera never moved. It was so perfectly still that it looked like it had been mounted on a tripod. All I could hear were her muffled groans of pain. Then, metal clanged somewhere off camera. It sounded like someone sorting through tools. Choosing one. My stomach turned. A figure stepped into view. I could only see his back. His face was hidden beneath a black balaclava. In his right hand, he held a knife. My heart stopped. The man grabbed the woman's head and forced her face upward. She writhed in the chair, desperately trying to escape. She didn't stand a chance. I had never seen so much blood in my life. Then, the killer removed his mask. He looked directly into the camera and smiled. The tape ended instantly. I couldn't move. It felt like every drop of blood had drained from my body. I was completely frozen. My grandmother had been standing behind me the entire time. She'd watched everything. Shaking, she hurried over and tried to comfort me. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. Finally, through her tears, she whispered, "I never wanted you to remember who you were before the accident. Don't ever Google your own name. Seriously. Why? Because you might not like what you find." One day I was bored and decided to search my own name online. I have a pretty unusual name, so I wasn't expecting many results. Imagine my surprise when I found a website with my full name as the domain. www.myfullname.com. Curious, I clicked on it. The site looked like an old internet forum. I checked the owner's profile and immediately noticed something strange. The owner was the same age as me. He had the same hobbies, the same interests. Oddly enough, the forum didn't contain a single real discussion. Still, something about it fascinated me, so I bookmarked the page. About a month later, I visited the site again. This time it had much more content. The owner had started posting short diary entries. Nothing unusual at first. Nice weather today. Work was incredibly boring. Just everyday thoughts. But as time went on, I started noticing more and more similarities to my own life. The guy lived in the same city I did. That alone felt strange. Two people with the same rare name, living in the same city at the same time. Then things became even weirder. The diary started matching my life almost perfectly. One day I went to a baseball game. That evening I checked the website, and the owner had written that he'd gone to the exact same game. At first I brushed it off. Tens of thousands of people in my city supported the same baseball team. It had to be a coincidence. But after that, the coincidences just kept piling up. Every time I visited the site, I'd discover another tiny detail that matched my own life. One post mentioned his dog. The dog's name was exactly the same as the one my childhood dog had. Another post showed a picture of his car. It was the exact same model I drove back in college. Then he wrote about eating at a restaurant. The very same restaurant I used to visit all the time when I worked at my previous job. Then one day I opened the site and saw several people wishing him a happy birthday. It was my birthday too. That was the moment I finally decided to say something. Out of pure curiosity, I wanted to congratulate him and tell him we shared the same name. But when I tried to post a message, I realized there was nowhere to type. It wasn't a real forum, it was just a static web page. That was the first thing that truly unsettled me. Whoever built the site had gone out of their way to make it look like a real community. Fake users, fake conversations, fake replies. Everything appeared to have been created by the owner himself. I couldn't stop wondering, why would anyone do something like that? Eventually, I decided to email the owner. My message was simple. Hey, believe it or not, we have the exact same name. Nice to meet you. Nothing creepy, just a friendly message. The next day, I tried visiting the website again. It was gone, completely gone, as if it had never existed. A few seconds later, I checked my inbox. There was one new email, a reply to the message I'd sent the day before. I opened it. The moment I read it, a chill ran down my spine. The email contained only 3 words. I found you. My brother never came out of his room for 3 days. My parents wouldn't let me check on him. But on the 3rd night, I finally worked up the courage to ask my mom. People don't sleep that long, I said. She was making another casserole, her 6th one that week. The refrigerator was already packed, but she just kept cooking. I sat quietly in the corner of the kitchen, watching her. Her shoulders were slumped, and strands of newly gray hair hung over the dish as she carefully spread butter across the top. I tugged gently on her sleeve. She didn't react. Mom, can you hear me? He needs to keep his strength up, she said softly. We shouldn't disturb him. Before I could say anything else, Dad walked into the kitchen. His eyes were swollen and bloodshot, but he was smiling. He was carrying 3 cans of cola. I'm starving, he said. I still can't get that awful hospital food out of my mouth. I always thought hospitals served decent meals considering how much money they make, Mom replied. Yeah, you'd think so. Dad set the sodas on the counter. Mom still refused to let anyone go into Jacob's room. By now I was starting to panic. I looked down the hallway. His bedroom sat at the very end, like an abandoned lighthouse. The only sign anyone lived there was a faded New York Yankees poster taped to the door. There was a small gap beneath it, just enough to see whether the lights were on. It was still dark, just like it had been for the last 3 days. I looked back at Mom. Shouldn't we at least check on him? You know what hospitals really need? Dad interrupted. A Wendy's or a Burger King. Think about it. Hundreds of people spend hours there every day. They'd make a fortune. It's all politics, Mom said without looking up. They sign huge contracts that nobody can break. Yeah, that actually makes sense. Dad sat beside her. He leaned over the casserole and took a deep breath. That smells incredible. If you want, Mom said. While this one's finishing in the oven, we can heat up yesterday's leftovers. I think there's still some spinach and ricotta casserole left. That one was amazing, Dad said. Seriously, so good. Jacob can have some too once he gets his appetite back, Mom added. I turned away and stepped into the hallway. The distance between me and Jacob's room suddenly felt impossibly long, like walking across a tightrope. As soon as I left the kitchen, the smell of casserole disappeared. Another smell took its place. Old gym socks. No matter how many scented candles or sticks of incense Mom burned, that smell always found its way through. The last time I'd seen Jacob was on the drive home from the hospital. His face had a sickly green tint. His eyes kept rolling back. Mom told me to keep talking to him so he wouldn't drift away. I told him stories about school, about my friends supposedly putting thumbtacks on our teacher's chair. It wasn't even true. I'd just seen it happen once on TV. I was running out of things to tell him. It didn't matter anyway. Jacob never reacted. He only coughed. Pink saliva dripped down the front of his shirt. Danny, Mom called from the kitchen, could you warm up the leftovers? Let's all enjoy some spinach and ricotta casserole together. I couldn't stop thinking about it, Dad said. I even dreamed about it last night. I ignored them. My eyes stayed locked on Jacob's door. I hadn't dreamed about casserole. My dream was always the same, Jacob bursting into my room and flicking me on the ear. It was our favorite game. We'd sneak outside each other's bedroom door, waiting for the perfect moment. Then we'd charge in, land 1 or 2 hard flicks on the ear, and run. In my dream, Jacob came into my room and kept flicking me. But I couldn't move. I just stood there. He laughed. Flick laughed again. Flick. Sometimes he hit so hard. My ear flew right off. Danny? Dad snapped his fingers in front of my face. He was standing between me and Jacob's bedroom door. Could you heat up 4 servings, just in case Jacob feels hungry? We'll eat these before the new casserole is ready. I really want him to try it. I honestly think this is one of your mother's best." I stared at him. I couldn't put my feelings into words, so I hoped maybe if I looked at him long enough, he'd somehow understand. Instead, he only glanced back for a split second, then looked away. But in that brief moment, I saw something I wish I hadn't. His eyes were empty, like staring down the deepest well in the world. "Come on," he said. He rested a hand on my shoulder and gently turned me toward the kitchen. His voice became strangely serious. "Heat each piece separately. If you warm them all at once, they won't cook evenly. Some will be too hot, some too cold. And Jacob won't get to enjoy just how good this casserole really is." Dad walked ahead of me. I stayed in the hallway a moment longer. I looked back at Jacob's door. I imagined opening it, walking inside, but I was afraid Mom would yell at me. Truthfully, I had never liked going into his room. There was always a bucket beside the bed filled with pink vomit. Clumps of hair covered his pillow. Even before his last hospital stay, Mom kept making me visit him. She wanted me to talk to him. I always found an excuse. I'd pretend I had a cold, tell her I didn't want to get him sick. And when she made me go anyway, I'd stay for a few minutes. Watch him struggle to breathe. Tell him about some TV show I'd seen. Then run back to my room. I looked up. I thought I was walking toward the kitchen. Instead, I was walking toward Jacob's door. I didn't want to, but my legs kept moving, like I was a puppet, and someone else was pulling the strings. I wrapped my hand around the doorknob, turned it, opened the door. The smell of old gym socks flooded into my head, almost like breathing helium. In the darkness, I could just make out my brother's face. A soft evening light fell across it. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His arms were perfectly straight. His fingers curled stiffly like dead flower petals. I stepped closer to the bed. Dark red saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth. Jacob looked like a sad clown. I flicked him on the ear. It was hard, cold. I walked back out and quietly closed the door behind me. As I headed back down the hallway, I realized something strange. I couldn't remember what his room looked like anymore. Behind that closed door, he could have been doing anything. Reading comic books, doing burpees, or quietly planning his next attack on my ear. I returned to the kitchen, heated up 4 plates of spinach and ricotta casserole. When they were ready, I wrapped Jacob's plate in foil and placed it in the oven to keep it warm. Then Mom, Dad, and I sat down together and ate in complete silence. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. If you have any thoughts about what happened, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.